Okay, we
Well,
are live.
welcome. Thank you, Xander. Welcome to the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program's Executive Steering Group meeting. My name is Lisa Keohokaloli Shower, and I have the honor of facilitating several of our community meetings, most often in the community advisory space, but I'm sitting in and helping out for this facilitation of the Executive Steering Group. It's been a few months since we've all met, but there's been a lot of work that the program has done in partnership with each of our executive steering group members. So I want to welcome you today to the space and have us go ahead and get started. So if we can have the first set of slides up, we'll go through kind of our standard operating protocols. And then my hope is each of you can share a bit of an update as to what's happening in your agency. So first, let's go ahead and start with, we have closed captions in both English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser. We are able to access those closed captions at the bottom middle of your screen. You should see a menu of options, and if you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen and click the CC icon, and a separate window with captions will appear. We appreciate you joining us today, those that are in the Zoom room with us and those that are watching on YouTube. We'd like to encourage panelists to turn on your video, keep your audio on mute when you're not speaking, and before speaking, please go ahead and state your name and affiliation to help those identify who is talking. With our centering of both the ASL as well as the closed captions, we just want to make sure that folks know who is participating and who's speaking. Of course, if you have any technical difficulties, we ask that you contact the program staff at 503-440-4891. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting. To submit input after the meeting, we ask that you email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with ESG Public Comment in the subject line. We also have a hotline if you'd like to call and leave a message, 888-503-6735. I also wanted to note that the Executive Steering Group did receive information in advance of this meeting relative to this public input instruction. So folks have received that input. Meeting ground rules. These are the same meeting ground rules we've had since the beginning, and just want to reinforce that those ground rules include honoring the agenda, listening to understand and ask questions to clarify, being hard on the problems and soft on the people, addressing interests, and seeking common ground. We'd like to ensure that we provide a balance of speaking time. There's some new content and information that will be debuting today. And so we want to ensure that as we go through this process today, that if you do have comments and you have feedback, that I will try to ensure that there's a balance of time so that folks can all be able to participate actively. All right, our meeting agenda. So we'll go ahead and get started with the welcomes. We'll take it around the table and ask each of you to provide a bit of an update and a welcome. And then we will head into a program update by Administrator Johnson. We'll go through videos and visualizations. We'll discuss how we're preparing for the draft SEIS public comment period. We'll be able to dive into the results of the workforce study. And then we'll open up the meeting at the very end to have an opportunity to review public comment and hear directly from the community if they're available to provide input. All right, so with that, why don't we go ahead and take down the slides and allow an opportunity for each member of the Executive Steering Group to provide a welcome and an update. I'm going to start with our WSDOT Secretary Millar and have you go ahead and kick us off.
Great, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Roger Millar, Secretary of Transportation in Washington. We have been very busy on any number of fronts, but the most exciting thing right now is we are 1 day away, well, 2 days away from the end of our 2024 legislative session. So our State Senate, State House are very busy right now, and one of the last things they need to do is pass a transportation budget. So we are all looking forward to seeing what we'll be doing for the next year and a half or so.
Thank you, Secretary Millar. Let's go ahead and head over to ODOT, and Director Strickler couldn't be with us today. However, our ODOT Director of Urban Mobility, Brendan Finn's here. So Brendan.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. Director Strickler sends his love. Unfortunately, got called away on the last minute. I'll follow up on Secretary Millar's comments. It's top of mind for us as well. The 10th is sine die for our legislature here in the short session. Our Joint Committee on Transportation focused a lot on current needs operationally for the agency, as well as delivery on some of the big projects that came out of HB 2017. There's also a subcommittee from the Joint Committee on Transportation Planning that focused a lot on the work we're doing around tolling. So they did a lot of deep dives on that. No legislation did come out of those committees on those items, but we are looking forward to the end of that and how it's teed up a discussion for the next legislative session. Excuse me. So that's our update from ODOT, Lisa. Thanks.
Thanks, Brendan. Let's head on over to the City of Vancouver and Mayor McInerney-Ogle.
Good afternoon. We want to stop all of the rumors that Eric Holmes is joining Cirque du Soleil as a new acrobat. He's not going to Russia. He's not going to Portland. So we're trying to squash all of those rumors. But we do have a haiku for you. Lori is our new staff member for IBR, and she travels across the bridge frequently. And so here's her haiku. What beautiful views. I hope I make it over to see even more. Yay.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to head to the city of Portland, and I suspect perhaps Art, you may be sitting in for Commissioner Maps, and so go ahead and I'll pass it over to you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Art Pierce, Director of Policy Planning and Projects here at PBOT. I come unprepared with my own haiku, but I really appreciate Mary Ann's. Thanks, glad to be here, and Commissioner Mapp sends his regards for not being able to attend today.
Great, thank you, Art. Let's head over to the Regional Transportation Council and Executive Director Matt Ransom.
Good afternoon. It was great to see everybody at Secretary Buttigieg's visit a couple weeks ago. Great to see you again today. The Regional Transportation Council Board of Directors has been meeting as we do each month. And this spring, I decided with leadership to convene discussions about the IBR, specifically in preparation for the release of the supplemental EIS. This afternoon at our meeting at 4 p.m., Greg has been invited. Thank you, Greg, for your participation to present materials. When you think about RTC, it's an association of governments, 25 members, travel nation. I think it's a very important audience to hear this report, and look forward to this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. All right, Metro Council President Peterson, do you want to provide an update for Metro, please?
Lynn Peterson, Metro Council President. I'm just laughing because the things on our agenda include putting out a new zoo bond measure for the Oregon Zoo, which has a 94% approval rating, and is one of our many responsibilities, as well as having a conversation about what to do next about affordable housing in the region. We successfully completed our $653 million bond measure and are now looking to see what the region wants to do next. In the next 2 years, we'll have provided 4,700 units of housing for low income and affordable housing. So that's where Metro has been spending a lot of time.
Excellent. Thank you, President Peterson. All right. Well, we have a new member of the executive steering group, replacing former CEO Sean Donahue. Leanne Carver, want to open the floor for you to be able to welcome you to the space and perhaps provide a bit of an introduction and an update.
Thank you. Yes, I'm I'm Leanne Caver, and I'm on day 4 here of filling in Sean's last position. So just trying to absorb all of the nuances and meetings that have been popping up on my calendar and figuring out where to go. So thank you for getting the invite over to me today and getting me into this meeting. And for those that don't know, I've been here at C-Tran for 3 years on the 22nd of this month, and I did 17 years across the water over there with TriMet. So looking forward to this new endeavor of my transportation career and moving forward with the IBR project. Just wanted to let you know that just a quick little snap that we are continuing to work with on our IBR, our 2 IBR projects, our Highway 99 and our extension, and our long range plan, and also looking forward to finding my groove and getting into the IBR and supporting the IBR program however we can with C-Tran and the Southwest Washington partners. And Scott will be helping me guide through this stuff as we go.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll head on over to TriMet and the general manager, Sam DeSuze, with us.
Oh, good afternoon, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for the strong partnership that we have. This is really great as we move forward. With TriMet, we had a wonderful event that some of you attended yesterday. We broke ground on a Better Ed project in September of 2021, and it marked the 20th anniversary for the Red Line. Just yesterday, we opened up our North Gateway Transit Station, and it's going to make our system more reliable and more efficient, and it's going to provide that 1-seat ride from PDX all the way out to Hillsborough. And then the second thing I want to just say that would like to make sure we get all of this information out. So the American Public Transportation Administration, the conference is called the Mobility Conference. We will be hosting the Mobility Conference here in the latter part of April, and would like to make sure we get an invitation out to all of you, especially our partners. And also, if you've not had the opportunity to attend, this will be the very first time that the Bus International Rodeo will be held here in our region. And this is where all of the agencies around the United States, they send the top bus driver to compete. It's their Olympics, their Super Bowl, and we're hosting this in our backyard, and I'll be able to get all of the information out in the chat to you so that you can attend. So lots going on. We're preparing for that, and it's been a big task for the last year.
Thank you so much. All right, we have our ports to get an update from next. So I will pass it over to Commissioner Berkman with the Port of Vancouver, sitting in for Director Marler.
Great, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate that 2 weeks ago on February 22nd, we had the IBR online freight forum. There was good participation in there. A lot of good questions, which is what we're trying to do, is flesh out these issues. Really look forward to more of those kind of opportunities. I also want to point out that our port is having a series of lectures this spring, as we do each year. The first one is this Thursday, which I may be jumping ahead of my friend here at the Port of Portland, but we will have Port of Portland in town describing their PDX Next project. And then we'll have a couple of more, one on the United Grain, another one on the mighty Columbia, our working river. So anyone interested in that, I'd encourage you to go to our website, portvanusa.com, and look that information up. And in keeping with haiku, I turned to a member of staff, Mike Bomar, and he came up with, well, actually, he turned to ChatGPT, in keeping with the Columbia newspaper breakfast that we had this morning about AI, and ChatGPT said, "Over the river, Interstate 5 bridge stands tall, connecting 2 lands." That's my update. Thank you.
Love it. What a great way to open. All right. Well, Port of Portland, Executive Director Curtis Robinhold, do you have a haiku for us as well?
I don't, but I'm going to contract with Bomar to create one for me. Appreciate that, Jack. appreciate the kind words as well. I know your guys' forums are really well attended. They're terrific. So thanks for noting. We'll be talking about PDX at one of those. Several of you may have heard. Let me first say, Leanne, welcome. It's nice to see a friendly face. Welcome to the team here. Sam, congratulations on the opening yesterday. It was fantastic, although terribly cold. You know, next time you open a major line, I'd like you to do it in the summertime, please. And then finally, I think folks have heard that we have delayed the opening of our new terminal at PDX by at least a few weeks. We will be opening this summer. I think many of you, and Greg, you and I have talked about this a lot, that if you're focused on safety, you really have to take the time when you're getting the signals. We were pushing people on 50 and 60-hour work weeks, and we just found that we were getting to a place where little silly accidents were happening, and we really just said we're going to take a pause. There weren't accidents, there were near misses, and I'll just say that we gave the teams 3 days to chill out and relax, and we're working through a new schedule now to see when we can open. It will be this summer, but I just want to, I guess, reassure all of you that we're on track and things are going well, and that it was I'm really proud of the team, honestly, and our contractors at Hoffman and Skanska, just saying, hey, before something bad happens, let's make sure we get it right and do it in a safe way. So that's what we're doing. I'm guessing late June, early July, but we'll let you know as those dates become clearer. Thank you for the time, Lisa.
Thank you. I think we're all eager to be able to see the changes that are happening at PDX. We have our final two members of the executive steering group that I tend to spend my time with on IBR. So the co-chairs, Lynn Ballantyre and Ed Washington. Lynn, I'm assuming maybe you're going to start off? No, okay. All right, Ed, here you go. And then you can pass on over to Lynn.
Wow, Lynn, thanks. I didn't realize that I was going to be starting. Just looking back a little bit, just give you some thoughts on the kinds of things that we're doing with our group in November. We paid a lot of attention to the draft SEI supplemental environmental impact statement. And in December, we worked on and talked about visioning of the future of the post-construction. And in January, we reflected on the visionary exercises that were conducted in December. And in February, we spent most of our times focusing on the technical aspects of river navigation. And, you know, this is what we do with as many people that we have working with us. And sometimes it's come and go, but most times we have a pretty good core group of people who are there. And so I just like to say it's always a pleasure working with Lynn and Lisa, because the two of them really help me to stay fresh on things that are going on. And I depend on them a lot. And so, Lynn, I'm going to pass it back to you for some of your pearls of wisdom. Lynn?
Thank you. As with our other executive steering group members, a lot has happened since we last met. However, I think everything we do impacts the group. So I am going to take a little bit of time just to recap the meetings that we've had. So in November, we focused on the draft SEIS and how to kind of navigate that document. And then December, we were trying to vision the area post-construction, which is requires some imagination, but we're getting better tools and we appreciate that. And then we're also circling back to the community values and priorities. That was one of the first things that the CAG kind of settled on and advanced as a work product. In January, we looked back on the visioning exercise that we did in December. And then we also had a chance to provide input for the Vancouver Waterfront Transit Station. I'm just going to say CAG's excited to get their hands into some of this. Many of our members have specific interests that they want to be able to advocate for. And while the general information has been helpful, there is definitely an interest in kind of at least being aware of some of the choices that the team, project team will be making going forward. And then in January, we did the waterfront. In February, we learned more about river navigation and the permitting process. We got feedback for public engagement and community communication. And I will just say that at virtually maybe every meeting, we get an update on the community outreach that has occurred since our last meeting. So that's something that PEG is kind of keenly aware of and gets good information about. And then, talking about the Hayden Island Transit Station and just being able to visualize that and what are some of the choices, what are some of the reasons behind some of the choices. It was just very concrete, which I think our membership really appreciated. And then looking ahead to meeting later this month, we're hoping to have an opportunity for some visualization and potential review of the looking back to the Hayden Island Transit discussions that we had, and then also getting an update on the workforce report that will be communicated out. So PEG is busy and engaged and lots going on, and we're looking forward to lots more going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn and Ed. All right, well, I appreciate everyone spending just a little bit of time providing updates and our ability to kind of see each other. I'm going to pass over the meeting to our administrator, Greg Johnson, and our two assistant program administrators, Frank Green and Ray Mabee. So we'll go ahead and pull the slides up. Greg, if you want to go ahead and provide your update.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everyone. Once again, I'm Greg Johnson, Program Administrator for Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. We missed you guys. It's been too long. So you guys have been crafting poetry and everything since the last time we've seen each other. So I think that the program is moving forward. We've had some great meetings this spring with visitors to the region. So we're going to cover that, but let's go to the next slide. So as I tell everyone, this is probably the most important slide that we show at every meeting, and we're going to continue to show it. This has our key milestone dates, and once again, the big date is in that orange section to the right. And that's our first in-water work window. And we are, once again, looking at September of 2026 to have a contractor and designer on board for the river crossing bridge project and have them setting up and putting cofferdams and work platforms in place in September of 2026. And I'll reemphasize the importance of that. If we miss that in-water work window, that puts us a year behind schedule. And that year out in 2035 translates to over $300 million or approximately $1 million a day. So it's important. The team is focused on staying on schedule. You'll see some of the key dates. The release of the draft supplemental is our next key milestone. We're hoping in our conversations with our federal partners to expedite getting a final supplemental environmental impact statement / record of decision in early 2025. And we're hoping to have proposals, requests for proposals out on the street sometime during the spring of 2025 and move this project into the construction phase. So you're going to hear more about some of the delivery discussions that we have been having later on. So this is key important timeframes. We are continuing to have outreach in the community, as well as talking to the tribal nations. This is, once again, one of the key elements to garnering support is making sure that we are constantly out in the community, listening to the voices and taking heed of our advisory groups and things that they are passing on to the team. So also part of the presentation, you will hear about our next funding and grant application that's in for our BIP grant. And that is the largest federal grant that we are applying for. We're applying for 1.5 billion. So there will be, hopefully we will hear on that grant sometime in the spring or early summer. But once again, this is our North Star slide. This is the things that we are doing that have been identified by this group as important to make sure happen. So let's go to the next slide, please. So we talked about the important visits that occurred this winter. We had Secretary Buttigieg come to the program area and actually visited the bridge on 2 separate occasions, both on that Monday and that Tuesday. And you can see pictures of the bridge. You can see it from a distance, but you don't get the full impact of the bridge until you walk on it, till you go up to that machine room and feel the vibrations and understand that we are living with 1917 technology that is servicing this region. And it has served us well, but it is time for the replacement. But we also had a visit from the Federal Highway Administrator, Shaylin Batt. He also took time to tour the bridge and get an understanding of what this project is and look at the program area. We had an equity roundtable, which was tremendously well received. And once again, is part of what this group has charged us with to make sure that we are reaching out to communities of concern and involving them in how this program is being planned, designed, and will be constructed. We are also engaging with industry. We had a small business roundtable. We're also talking to providers of services for small businesses and DBEs, such as Apex. We also met with CREDC to give them an update of where we are at. We had also the Association of General Contractors take a tour with us of the contract or of the program area. And this was once again very successful in talking about what their needs and desires are. And we plan on offering many more tours this spring to get others out, such as labor, out on the structure and see and understand what this program is about. Our community outreach continues to be strong. We had a great meeting with the Vancouver Innovation, Technology and Art School. And one of the I think the best things we did this spring was have a youth press conference and tour. So we a number of area high school journalism students, as well as some college journalism students, joined us for an afternoon to go out and visit the bridge. And we gave them the tour so they can understand what this project is and what it is not. They asked some tremendously smart questions, as well as recognizing that they will be living with this bridge for the majority of their life. So they need to have a voice in what this looks like and how this bridge project moves forward. So it was a great press conference and tour with youth in mind. Well, let's go to the next slide, please. You've heard an update from both Ed and Lynn on our community advisory group, but the equity advisory group continues to meet monthly, and they are doing some fantastic things and giving some great input to our team. We are, our are taking all of this and trying to give them the latest and greatest information as we are moving this project forward, so their voice is reflected in what this project and both the processes that we operate and in the outcomes that we are expecting. So the community groups have been extremely important, and that was recognized by Secretary Buttigieg as a best practice to have these type of groups that reflect the community's will and the community's desire for mega projects like this. So the Community Benefits Advisory Group are our youngest of the advisory groups. They have been meeting every month since last September, and we have Mayor Ann as well as Commissioner Maps, who are helping as co-conveners of that group and giving great input to how that group is moving forward. They are currently doing asset mapping with all of the partners, as well as some of the other regional groups that can bring resources to the table to help shape what this program looks like. That has been a tremendously important task, and it is ongoing as we are moving forward. So that's a brief update on some of the things that have been going on with the program. And this is a lovely picture of the tour we gave the Community Advisory Group combined with the Equity Advisory Group and the Community Benefits Advisory Group. This is all at the expo station where the yellow line ends. And once again, it was a very excellent afternoon and very much well appreciated. So I'm going to turn it over to Frank Green to walk us through where we are in funding. So Frank.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome back, everyone. It's as Greg said, it feels like it's been a while. So just wanted to give a reminder and a quick update on where the program is with our funding and our finance plan. As you'll all be aware, and as Greg had mentioned, since we last met, we did formally hear back that we were awarded $600 million in the mega grant submittal that we had put in an application, which is great news. Obviously, show support for the program. But kind of as you look at this chart here, it shows how the program is targeting funding, the $6 billion likely estimated cost that we're trying to move forward with here. So you see the pie chart shows the little bit over 1.1 billion that each state contribution has been provided through the last session, and the 1.2 billion for tolling, and really highlights that the program is still targeting 2.5 billion out of federal funds. And so securing that $600 million mega grant was, I think, the first step in getting towards securing these federal funds. We also, if you'll recall, last year did get accepted into the FTA Capital Investment Grant, and so I think the show of support from both states as well as this partnership here, and having some of that local and state funding secured is really, I think, helping us with the federal grants that we're putting in, because it's demonstrating a commitment, not only from this group to move forward this program, but also from the states to provide a substantial contribution. And so if you can go to the next slide, please. We're summarizing the federal grants a little bit on this table. As I mentioned, getting the formal announcement for the mega grant was a really exciting day for the program. We'll be working with US DOT to further the grant application. We'll have a kickoff meeting with US DOT and formally get the funding secured through that process here within the next few months. The middle column here shows the Bridge Investment Program grant. As Greg mentioned, we submitted an application late last year. You know, as you can see, we did apply for 1.5 billion in that program. You know, really trying to maximize the potential for bringing federal funds to the region. We do expect to hear back on that program, you know, in the June timeframe, so maybe late spring, early summer, as we've been coordinating closely with Federal Highways, who is overseeing and reviewing those grants, that grant application. And you know, part of the process that they have with that application this time is that it'll be a little less formal of submittal and just hearing back. There will be opportunity through that process for us to work with Federal Highways in case they had any additional information or questions, and so we'll work closely with Federal Highways and you know, as soon as we hear anything back from Federal Highways on a potential award, we'll make sure to let partners, you know and go from there. And as I mentioned, the FTA Capital Investment Grant, you know, those are the funds that we're really going to be targeting to help us fund the capital transit investments. You know, entering into project development last September allows us to work with FTA. They will be assigning what they call a project management oversight consultant to the program, you know, really to help the program, you know, work with that oversight consultant and make sure that we're able to hit the milestones necessary to stay competitive for those funds as well. And, you know, the program will be targeting approximately $1 billion from that grant. And so, you know, with that, we know tolling is also, you know, in everyone's minds. And I'm going to turn it over to Ray, who's going to give a little bit of an update on where we've been with tolling for the last couple of months.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Yeah, as Frank mentioned earlier, just Ray may be Assistant Program Administrator, could be here this afternoon. But as Frank mentioned, tolling is a key part of our funding structure. And it's always good to remind folks that the program does not, or the DOTs do not set toll rates. That falls into the purview of our commissions, the Oregon Transportation Commission and the Washington State Transportation Commission. But in this case, we've got a joint project, so they need to work together to set the toll rates for this program. And to that end, they signed an IGA earlier this year in January to set up a bi-state toll subcommittee to work that issue, rather than bring both full commissions together, which can be hard for scheduling. They brought designated 2 representatives from each commission to be part of the subcommittee to meet and bring and recommend toll rates and policies back up to the full commissions for that initial rate setting. We anticipate that the subcommittee will get back together later on in the future for periodic reviews of the toll rates and potential adjustments. But right now, we're really focused on getting those rates set for the program on the outset. They did have their first meeting last month on February 23rd, really just a introductory meeting, really setting the stage. And their next meeting is, I believe, next Friday on the 15th of March, where they'll dig in a little deeper. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. So the toll rates and policies they'll be discussing as a subcommittee will have to go back to the full commissions and then be adopted by the majority vote of each of those commissions. And so we do have to coordinate that. All these meetings, whether of the subcommittee or for full commissions, are public meetings. We'll have those links and notices up on our webpage. But as they move forward and consider these different toll rates and policies, they've got to make sure they're working within the confines of each state's laws and bond covenants. So there are some differences that we'll need to pay attention to and try to find a path to resolve them and find a way to make sure that we are meeting those requirements, but landing on common policies and obviously singular toll rates. Now, their focus really is to make sure we get the revenue, net revenue we need
to be able to meet the funding commitments for the program. So that's really a focus on those financial obligations. But in this next meeting coming up on Friday, they're going to dig a little deeper. They're going to look into not only the basic financial requirements, but also the things that are a little bit beyond it, such as a corridor mobility, the efficient operations of the freeway section here. How is equity impacted? How do they consider that? Environmental quality is another topic about how we look at operations of vehicles and the greenhouse gas impacts from that. And then economic vitality, knowing that this is a corridor that moves a lot of goods and services and connects our two ports and our West Coast. So they need to be considering all those things. These are media discussions they'll be having. Now, you know, the one thing they foresaw as a potential need is that as the subcommittee works together and brings recommendations back up to the full committees or commissions, they may have different outcomes and they may need to resolve those. So there is a resolution process that is in the agreement. So they've planned for that if needed. But the commissions have, I think, amendments with each other to work through issues and move our program forward. Next slide, please. So what are the commissions really going to be handling and when? And if you remember the graph that, or the schedule that Greg showed earlier, we're looking to have a pre-completion tolling starting in 2026, mid-2026, and then final or full tolling happening when the bridges are open to traffic. So the commissions are going to decide for each of those scenarios, what are the toll rates by time of day? Are they going to have variable rate tolling, flat tolling? What's the ways we're going to accept payment, whether through a preset transponder or prepaid accounts, or pay-as-you-go, or a license type of identification. They'll also be thinking about different multiplication factors for trucks. In Oregon, we have a highway cost allocation study that we do to understand the cost between trucks and automobiles. And we need to make sure that as we have this discussion as the commissions, to land on that multiplier for trucks that we think is fair and equitable. We also think about hours of operation. Are we going to be tolling all day? For instance, when I think about the pre-completion tolling, or because we're going to have 3 lanes of traffic maintained throughout the construction of the bridge, but we'll have nighttime closures and stage changes, that we would be tolling throughout the day, but not at night in pre-completion scenario. But once we move into full opening of the bridges, they could maybe consider tolling in the evening, at night, and during the day. So these are the things that they'll be considering there. We know that things continue to get more expensive, and inflation is a factor we all experience. And so that's real for the bridge operations and maintenance during the toll bond payback period. And so considering a toll escalation to help react to that is something that the commissions will do as well. And then they'll also look at potential discounts and exemptions. We know that we have a high interest in this region to look after our low-income community members. So how does that look like in a discount scenario? So they'll be discussing that. There are tribal exemptions, pre-exemptions, and then other exemptions that they need to consider. Other vehicles, certain types they may want to think about differently as well, such as public transit, emergency vehicles, or carpools or van pools. So they've got to have those discussions on how they want to factor those in. Obviously, they're going to want to understand how it impacts the revenue we get. As the program did complete a level 2 traffic and revenue analysis in the past that included some of these potential exemptions. They'll be looking to help inform us to move forward with a level 3 investment grade analysis as we get closer to tolling on the bridge. There was a lot there. I think Greg's going to be stepping us into some visualizations and new renderings we're going to share, but I wonder, Lisa, if we should take some questions at this stage.
That's what I was thinking as well. So we're a few minutes over kind of our planned time, but we do want to make sure that there is enough time to ask questions throughout this ESG meeting. So are there questions or comments before we move into videos and visualizations? I didn't mean to shut down the opportunity with the timing. All right. Okay. Thank you, Ray. Greg, I think you're back up for videos and visualizations.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. One thing I did want to mention, going back to the importance of this winter, was I went with Secretary Millar and Director Strickler to DC and met with USDOT. One of the most important things that they conveyed to us with that $600 million grant, they said they are no longer interested bystanders, that they are full partners to get this program underway and constructed. So that was very, very heartening to hear. So let's talk about visualization. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is just the information slide. We have developed some videos to help walk the general public through some of the investments that are being proposed. So once again, this is to give folks ideas of if these investments are made, how they would be able to travel through this corridor based on what exists today and what could possibly exist in the future. So these are available on our website and at interstatebridge.org. We're also planning on some additional active transportation videos to show how bicyclists and walkers will be able to make their way through this corridor and connect to important destinations and connection points on each side of the river. So let's go to the next slide, please. So next, we're going to walk you through some river crossing visualizations. And I want to tell you what these are and what they are not. So these show the different bridge types based on the three configurations that are still being studied: single level, double level, and movable span. These are not for decision making or narrowing of options. This is just to give perspective on the size of the bridge as related to if you're standing on the ground on Hayden Island or on the waterfront in Vancouver. So this is also not the aesthetic treatments that are being worked on. Those will be coming out sometime this summer, so folks can get an idea of what some of the aesthetic possibilities are with the bridge types that are being studied. But once again, this is a technical analysis that compares trade-offs between the three bridge configurations. So the community will have an opportunity to see these and provide input during the 60-day public comment period. A decision regarding bridge configuration is expected to be made in 2024 before the start of the final supplemental and amended record of decision. So once again, consideration to determine bridge type will occur once a decision on bridge configuration is made. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this shows where the location of some of the visualizations, the perspective where they're taken from. This first one will be standing on Hayden Island, west of the bridge, looking north towards Vancouver. So let's go to that next slide. So this is the double deck bridge configuration, and you can get an idea of scale by looking at some of the pedestrians. So Once again, this is going to be a bigger bridge than currently exists. We know that. It's going to carry more types of transportation. So this will carry a modern active transportation system. This will carry light rail. So this will be a bigger bridge, and this will have impacts on Hayden Island. But we think there will also be very positive impacts in reconnecting the island by providing access from Tomahawk Drive from east to west, and by making walkable community on Hayden Island. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this shows, once again, a single span. No, this is a movable span. It's a single level bridge. You see the catenary lines for the light rail on top. But once again, these aesthetic choices, this just shows basic bridge piers and types of beams. But once again, this gives you an idea of the scale of what the program is looking at for a bridge. And you see in that far background the lift mechanisms that would be necessary to make this lift bridge operable. So let's go to the next slide. And this is a single level bridge configuration with no lift span. And once again, you're looking to the north. This allows us to have a lower level than, or lower height than the double deck configuration. But once again, the trade-off is that this takes a larger footprint on the island and on the waterfront as we are taking this back into alignment with existing I-5. So next slide, please. So this next view is on Hayden Island, east of the bridge, looking north again. So from the shared use path. So next slide. So this is the double deck configuration and what it could look like. So once again, for illustration purposes only, we haven't determined the full width of what this active transportation pathway would look like, the materials, the colors that would be used for concrete or for coating to give folks a better wayfinding opportunity. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is, once again, looking at a single level configuration without a lift span. This shows a extra dose type bridge. You see those cables in the background designating an extra dose type bridge. But once again, you see the separation from traffic, and this would be open space where folks would have visual look at what the activities on the active transportation facility. And that was one of the concerns we heard, if it is not at the same level as traffic. So next slide, please. So this is, once again, looking at if a movable span was the choice that comes out of this. And you can see the movable span in the up position. And you see once again, the catenary lines to support active or to support transit operations across the bridge. So next slide, please. So this is a slide that looks from the Vancouver waterfront on the west side, looking east and south towards the bridge. So let's go to the next slide. This is, once again, the double deck configuration, and shows some of the, looking from where the Port of Vancouver is currently developing their facilities right on the waterfront. So you can see, once again, this will give a very different look than the existing bridge does. So next slide. This is a single level configuration. Once again, much wider footprint. This is an extra dose type bridge. You can tell by the cables. That deck is not transparent in this location, despite what it looks like, but this is, once again, what a configuration, a single deck configuration could look like. Next slide, please. This is, once again, if a lift span is the accepted alternative or accepted design option. This is, you notice that the lift span will be moved further from the shore and to allow better ship movement on the river. But once again, this is a single deck or single level option that is being studied. So, and once again, underneath you can see this is where the bicycle or active transportation mode starts to peel off from the existing structure and touch down on the waterfront. So next slide, please. And this is a view from the Vancouver waterfront on the east side of the bridge, looking south and west. So next slide. So you can see there are existing waterfront pathways that we will be connecting to with active transportation. And this is a double deck configuration. So next slide, please. This is a single deck configuration. Once again, an extra dose. You see the cables. This is also, you can see in the far background, the railroad span and some of the development on the waterfront. So let's go to the next slide. And this is where a lift span would be located, once again, moved further from the waterfront, more towards the center of the river to make sure that river traffic can navigate appropriately through here. So I think that's the last, so let's go to the next slide. So next we're gonna have, well, first if there are any questions or concerns that I can answer for you before we go into Katie Belliconi's presentation. I'm not seeing any, Lisa.
I'm not seeing any either. Very quiet group, maybe in anticipation for the next two presentations. Thank you, Greg.
Katie.
Oh, nope, I see Mayor McInerney-Ogle. And
Greg, are you showing us the really ugly stuff so we don't get our hopes up?
We have a team that's furiously working on aesthetics. And what we don't want to have them do is have to repeat a number of different things. So as we start moving towards the selection of one configuration, we want to have them focus on the aesthetic alternatives for that one configuration. So that's why we are not ready with aesthetic treatments yet, but we're going to get there.
Because seeing all those overhead power lines makes me think I'm in a third world country. So I'm looking forward to the really good stuff in the future.
Well, we're going to have to work with our friends at TriMet to see how we can make something more aesthetic. But that's just a general view of if those overhead catenary lines are exactly that, overhead catenary lines. So we'll have some options for you as we get more into the aesthetic views of things.
Great. Sandra Sue, expect us to take you out for coffee and pie.
Absolutely, Mayor. I'm looking for that from both you and President Peterson.
It looks like we have Commissioner Berkman with your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Greg, you mentioned here now a couple of times that, and I agree, you don't want to have the team working on the aesthetics and multiple alternatives, not efficient. When do you think that they might start working on that final version? Is that going to be post supplemental EIS?
Yes, as soon as we get through the post or get through the draft supplemental process, our team is going to come back with a recommendation for a single configuration based on what we hear from the public. And that's when the aesthetic team will start developing more and concise bridge aesthetics for the chosen configuration. So we anticipate narrowing that down sometime this summer and turning us over to those folks to start putting the pretty touches to this thing.
Okay, thank you very much, because probably no surprise, that kind of information will be useful for us as we continue to develop our Terminal 1 project.
Understood.
Good questions and comments. Thank you. Appreciate you reviewing this section. Greg, we're going to head into the next agenda item, which is preparing for the draft SCIS public comment period with our public affairs lead, Katie Belliconi. I'm just going to add that we're running just a tiny bit over time, and so hoping that we'll be able to wrap up in the next 10 or so minutes so that we can move into the next section, but we'll see how we get through the presentation and allow opportunity for feedback. Katie.
Sounds good. I will do my best. Good afternoon. As Lisa and Greg mentioned, I'm Katie Belliconi, and I oversee the public affairs team for the IBR program. That body of work encompasses communications, community engagement, and government relations efforts. Today, I'm looking forward to telling you a bit about how we're preparing for the release of the draft SCIS and the associated public comment period. Can go, thank you. As you can see, the draft SCIS is a very large document full of technical analysis and information. This document will include what the program's purpose and need is, what the locally preferred alternative that's being studied consists of, as well as the design options that are under consideration. There are also nearly 24 technical reports, financial analysis, and many other data points that have been analyzed in the document. Next slide. One of the most fundamental ways to help the community prepare for the public comment period is first and foremost to help them understand what is going to be in the document as outlined on the previous slide. Additionally, prioritizing the community's ability to interface with the document is paramount to the draft SCIS process. This is being done by including a high-level summary that's about 60 pages long at the start of the document, fulfilling the federal requirement of making the document easy to understand, creating the document in a way that is easy to navigate. This includes graphics, an index, and searchable functionality for the digital version. And lastly, the program is planning for a 60-day comment period instead of the more common 30 or 45-day comment period. Next slide. Recognizing the complexity of the document, the program is currently working with community members to help them feel prepared to review the document and provide public comment upon its release. Some of the ways that we are doing that include presenting information to our different advisory groups and community groups to help them understand what the document is and how they will be able to comment on it, being accessible to the community through our office hours program. We offer 4-hour blocks of time, 4 hours monthly, where community members can schedule an appointment to meet with program staff and get their questions answered. To date, we've had approximately 30 visitors over the last 7 months or so. We also have a program email inbox where we actively correspond with interested parties to address their questions. The program has a very dynamic social media presence where we spread relevant program information on Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. The program also disseminates information monthly to around 6,000 subscribers through our monthly newsletter. Once the document's released and we're in the public comment period, we will not only hold the formal hearings and notifications that we are required to as part of the official process, but we will also have a series of community briefings to help the public understand information in the document, listening sessions for the public to hear from the program, and bigger community forums for the public to interface with technical resources. Next slide. Actually, will you go back really quickly? I also want to make sure to note that we plan to send out mailers to property owners within the program area, as well as conduct literature drops to make them aware that the document is available and letting them know about different opportunities to understand the information and provide public comment. Additionally, we will have a recording on our website explaining the different ways community members will be able to provide public comments. Now you can go to the next slide. It will be critical to make sure that folks are aware that the draft SEIS has been released, and as such, we have planned dynamic tools to achieve this, including a comprehensive advertising campaign, including a combination of print, radio, and social media channels. We will focus on including local and culturally specific outlets. We are creating a whole series of videos that will include program area needs, program plans to meet those needs, an explanation of our environmental process, as well as how people can comment. As I mentioned, we will be sending out postcards. We will create EIS-specific collateral, which will include fact sheets and display boards. We'll also creatively engage with media outlets to leverage our messaging. Next slide. Here you're looking at a new web page we recently launched just a few weeks ago. This will be the landing page where we will include draft SEIS information to help folks understand the document, including videos and the different ways to provide public comment. It will also be where the document itself is located once it's released. Next slide. In addition to the document being available online, community members are welcome to stop by the program office to view a copy of the document. The program's committed to accommodating accessibility, ADA, and other needs through the comment process. There are many ways people can submit comments during the comment period, including providing a public comment at a hearing, submitting a comment digitally, sending a comment through the mail, or calling the program office and leaving a voicemail. Comments provided in any language will be recorded with a comment summary available after the public comment period ends. A comment response will be provided in the final SEIS document and will outline if any changes, updates, or information resulted from the comment being provided. Next slide. We still anticipate releasing the draft SEIS this spring. As I mentioned, the program will analyze all comments received and plans to select the alternative that will be included in the final EIS by late 2024. The final EIS, with that selected alternative and associated analysis, is scheduled to be published in early 2025 with receipt of a record of decision shortly after. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Katie, you just covered your section from almost 20 minutes down to
I was
10
speed talking,
brilliantly. If there are questions, we want to allow for space now that we're back on track with our time. Any questions of Katie? Comments? All right, great. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Great. We're going to move to our next section, and I see that we have our presenters available and ready. So this section is on the workforce study. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Aidan Gronauer, our IBR Assistant Director of Civil Rights and Equity. Aidan.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you today on some information and informative and innovative work the IBR program has been doing related to workforce. Next slide, please. Wonderful. As you all are, I'm sure, are aware, a skilled and diverse workforce that is ready to meet the challenges of the future is critical to the IBR program's success. With the national construction industry's workforce shortage, along with an increasing number of large infrastructure projects in the region, the IBR program recognizes the need for all of our public agencies across the region to actively identify and implement strategies to improve workforce readiness. The IBR program commissioned a comprehensive regional workforce market study, which you all will see fresh off the press today, to understand the current workforce market availability for IBR related to our work, and to help the program more effectively consider strategies that enhance career opportunities for women, people of color in the construction and professional, technical, and engineering trades to help support equitable growth for our region's economy. The study was conducted by our local workforce development boards, Workforce Southwest Washington, Clackamas Workforce Partnership, and Work Systems, along with some other subject matter partners. This regional workforce market study is a key to help us understand the potential gaps in the current workforce, as well as any projected workforce needs to support the IBR program, as well as the other infrastructure projects going on in our region over the next 5 years. The study identifies opportunities for us to consider that could support our efforts to help ensure equitable economic and workforce development. I'll now pass off the mic to our colleague, Kelly Haynes with Work Systems, to provide a brief overview of the study.
Great, thanks, Aidan. Thanks for that introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Haynes. My pronouns are she, her, and like Aidan said, I work for Work Systems, the local workforce development board that serves Washington and Multnomah counties. It's an honor to be able to present the findings and recommendations to you all today. I'm going to also try to do some speed talking so we have enough time for questions. So bear with me as we get through. We learned quite a bit during this study, and there's a lot we're excited to share with you all. I'll start with the research team. So like Aidan mentioned, it was led by the local workforce development boards, Clackamas Workforce Partnership, Workforce Southwest Washington, and Work Systems. Our team also included Estelano Advisors, which is a private consulting firm who specializes in inclusive economic development strategies across the country. We also work closely with a local regional economist from the Oregon Employment Department, who helped to produce labor market data and analysis that's vital for policymakers, businesses, and educational entities. And lastly, we partnered with Dr. Maura Kelly from Portland State University. She led on the qualitative research and has a long history of conducting projects on workforce diversity, specifically in construction. Next slide. So building upon prior research from 2018, this is a much needed report that updates regional data that will help local policymakers and electeds have a clear picture of the regional workforce equity needs for green-lighted public infrastructure work. Next slide. So how did we do it? We used both extensive quantitative and qualitative methods. This included collecting and analyzing existing available construction and professional, technical, and engineering, or PTE, workforce supply data, forecasting the local 5-year workforce demand, conducting extensive interviews with public agencies, contractors, apprenticeship programs, unions, and pre-apprenticeship programs, and holding focus groups with diverse construction workers and foremen in the region. The research sought to uncover the major barriers to achieving equity and increasing diversity in the construction and PTE workforce for the Portland, Vancouver, Hillsborough Metropolitan Statistical Area, or the Portland MSA. A set of recommendations for success are outlined and described in the report. Next slide. It's also important to highlight the limitations of the study due to data availability, as well as be transparent about the assumptions used in the analysis. Our approach was informed by utilizing national staffing patterns, labor data on past projects, and then ground truthing these with local contractors and their estimating staff. We also know that different types of projects will require different types of trades, so we developed staffing pattern profiles for nearly 20 different types of capital projects, such as light rail, data centers, hospitals, and then overlaid that onto the list of projects to develop forecasted need by trade. We also used the average of apprenticeship and diversity goals for those agencies who reported having them and overlaid that onto all projects for all trades. Oh, we're on a different slide now. Sorry about that. Okay. So for the findings, on the existing workforce supply, we found that 43,000 people currently work in the trades in the Portland MSA. 5% identify as women and roughly 26% identify as people of color. We detail out these data by racial and gender category in the report, but one highlight is that Latin workers are overrepresented, especially in lower paying trades. There is also underrepresentation for Black and Asian workers. There are also clear wage equity trends in the trades. Both women and people of color consistently are concentrated in lower paying occupations. Next slide. Our findings around the projected demand, we found that from 2023 through at least 2028, the 107 known large public capital projects identified by this study will require over 22,000 construction workers. Some of the projects have apprentice and workforce diversity goals, with average goals of 17% apprentices, 21% people of color, and 11% women. These average goals, if applied to all 107 projects, put the 5-year demand at 3,800 apprentices, 4,700 people of color, and 2,500 female construction workers. When diversification and workforce deficits are added together by trade, this analysis shows that the current supply would fall short by nearly 300 people of color, over 1,000 females, and nearly 300 apprentices to fill the needs for all trades in the region over the next 5 years. These deficits show the deep need for additional outreach to training and retention of underrepresented groups for skilled trade career opportunities. Additionally, an estimated 5,900 PTE workers will be needed. As with the trades, these positions may be filled by a combination of the existing workforce and new entrants. And we found that 3 PTE occupations account for over half of the total PTE demand: office clerks, project management specialists, and civil engineers. Next slide. We want to also be clear that the overall construction labor demand is also much larger than what's included in this scope. This analysis was detailed and systematic, and it only includes green lighted public capital projects over 15 million. So it does not include private projects, public projects under 15 million, or any data that may not have been disclosed during our interviews. On this slide is a chart that illustrates the broader construction spending that is forecasted across the region in the next 5 years that includes both private and other public spending. For those reasons, there is significant demand in the region for construction workers outside the scope of this study. However, this analysis does likely include most of the projected demand for apprentices, workers of color, and female workers in the region, because utilization goals for these types of workers primarily exist in public capital projects and are rarely present in the private market. That doesn't mean, however, that apprentices, women, and people of color aren't employed elsewhere. So public sector projects will still need to compete in other markets for this workforce. Next slide. Our findings from our focus groups and interviews found that retention of diverse workers is adversely affected by lower quality training these workers often receive on the job site from supervising journey persons, which means that these apprentices are less included in the trades and struggle to excel and advance. Harassment remains a significant issue on job sites. It includes harassment based on gender, race, and other identities, harassment of apprentices, and disrespect often experienced by all workers. Workers also experience isolation and exclusion, and it impacts the industry's ability to retain current workers and to recruit future workers. The industry has not yet widely adopted policies and practices that effectively address job site harassment and discrimination incidents. Women and people of color are less likely to have opportunities for advancement within the industry, such as becoming forepersons, superintendents, or company owners. Additional support is needed related to the transition from apprentice to journey level. Real-life financial hardships or unexpected life situations often arise, like transportation issues or family care needs, especially for early-term apprentices who may have limited or no savings, which can be enough to prevent them from continuing with their careers. Additionally, the lack of steady work in the construction industry particularly impacts female workers and workers of color. Studies have shown that these workers work far fewer hours annually than their white male counterparts. Also, the cost of childcare and access to childcare, especially for non-standard shifts, are a barrier to success for parents in the industry. And requirements for long shifts, changing schedules, and non-standard work hours without options for flexibility in work hours pose challenges for workers, especially those with caregiving needs. Next slide. And here are some more barriers that we also found. Most connections into apprenticeships still occur through personal referrals, which women and people of color are less likely to experience. And outreach that is done by word of mouth is rarely targeted specifically toward marginalized communities. Also, some of our best partners, state-certified pre-apprenticeship programs, do have a good track record of connecting historically underrepresented populations to the trades and screen them for job readiness and help to cultivate a pipeline of diverse job seekers. However, these programs have limited capacity due to funding sustainability concerns and reporting fatigue for their numerous existing funders. Not having a more sustained or streamlined funding model for pre-apprenticeship programs is a barrier for better and increased recruitment of women and people of color into construction. And lastly, the majority of public projects in the Portland metro area do not have workforce participation goals. Those that do have goals can struggle with monitoring and enforcing them, and agencies reported that staff, time, and cost could be barriers to implementing and upholding goals. Next slide. So given all of those findings, here's a set of recommendations that we would like to present for IBR to consider. Meeting the increasing demand for a skilled workforce necessitates coordinated efforts on a regional scale, addressing retention barriers and entry faced by workers often marginalized in the sector. The following recommendations for consideration are also discussed at length in the full report. So number one, grow a diverse regional construction workforce through multi-jurisdictional collaboration, coordination, and targeted investments. Make the intentional choice to build up the regional workforce by joining forces with existing successful regional efforts. This can look like adopting the Construction Career Pathways Framework. TriMet, the City of Portland, Metro have all been working together since 2018 and have made very good progress on this work. Embed equity goals into all workforce agreements. The Regional Workforce Equity Agreement can be a model for that and is now being applied to over $2 billion worth of work locally. And also our friends in Washington State have some good examples in the Seattle area. The City of Seattle, the Port, King County, and Sound Transit have a long history of working together to collaborate on things like project labor agreements with workforce goals, embedded and also multi-jurisdictional funding models. Number two, improve retention through addressing job site culture and other challenges. So mandate that contractors commit to actively improve job site culture by establishment of zero tolerance policies, robust reporting mechanisms, and consistent implementation of proven positive work environment training. Number 3, knock down the barriers that women and workers of color face to grow a skilled workforce. This can look like joining the multi-jurisdictional Construction Careers Funder Collaborative to scale up regional workforce planning and investments. Fund and grow comprehensive pre-apprenticeship programs, support services, and retention support that can help a new generation of workers advance in their careers. Number 4, implement effective project administration and procurement strategies. That can look like effectively planning for and supporting workforce equity policies alongside your project managers, sustaining and establishing labor management community oversight committees. Not sure if Commissioner Mapps is here, but last Monday, he was able to see LMCOC in action on the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant, where Kiewit, as the general contractor, is working side by side with labor and community partners to achieve their workforce goals. Number 5, increase communication and education for project managers and contractors. Allocate resources for training opportunities and internal support tailored to project managers, focusing on supporting them to advance equity in construction projects. And lastly, continue to explore and address PTE equity opportunities. There are many proven models that we discuss in the report around the construction industry that we know work, and our recommendation to consider is to explore applying those models also to PTE careers and with higher education partners. That is all I have. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Aiden.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Next slide. Okay, perfect. So to everyone here today, this study is one important step to inform our efforts as a program, continues to develop specific workforce strategies. It provides a foundation to understand the current and anticipated future state of the workforce, as well as opportunities to help promote equitable growth in our region's economy. As far as next steps that the program is taking with this report, we plan to publish this report on IBR's website sometime this month. We're just finishing up the branding on the report. Then we plan to also do a deep dive of this study with our equity advisory groups, such as our advisory groups, such as our equity advisory group, our community advisory group, as well as our community benefits advisory group, to receive their advice and recommendations on how we move forward. Then we will analyze the recommendations with our senior leadership team and identify potential program actions and develop action plans to implement what is recommended by our senior leadership. I would now like to open up the floor for any questions that anyone might have.
I see that Mary Ann's hand has been up. Thank you for your patience as we finish the presentation. And then it looks like Art Pierce. So Mary Ann.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I don't know what happened to our screen, but going back, I believe it's slide 50 or 51, where there is the abbreviation of PTE, but no reference to what PTE is until slide 55. So maybe we can bring in that professional, technical, and engineering PTE way back in slide 50, those last bullet and second to last bullet. Quick question, when will we be talking about, maybe it's go to slide 51. There you go. Those last two bullets, PTE workers, PTE demand, maybe we can throw it in there. When will we start hearing about project labor agreements?
So, Marianne, I can take that question. We are currently in discussion with the DOTs who would be party to a project labor agreement. We are talking about what form this will look like. Will it be a programmatic across all of the entirety of the program, or will it be specifically on the higher risk elements of the program? So those are discussions that are being held currently at the DOTs. We're hoping to start a more public-facing conversation probably sometime this summer. we have to quickly reach some decisions because we're going to have contract documents that will need to be informed by this discussion. So sooner than later, we will be having these public-facing conversations.
But Greg, do those come after the draft supplemental EIS?
They don't have to. It's a matter of reaching language and concepts with the DOTs first. So if we can get that wrapped up, we can start that conversation as soon as that is wrapped up.
Great,
So
thank you so much.
It doesn't depend on the draft supplemental.
Great, and the study looks good. We have some wonderful examples on the north bank of the Columbia River that we'll share. So Kelly, we'd be happy to bring you over to Columbia Cascadia Tech Academy and such and take a look at some of those apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. Thank you, good work.
Thank you, Mayor. Art?
Thank you. Really impressed with the work to date on this and the programs being discussed. And I think particularly understanding barriers to accessing this, including childcare and other types of needs. Really appreciate that. I think one thing I didn't notice was the physical barrier of accessing this work. I think particularly for transit users or cyclists. So I would really encourage you to think about how we're creating a very significant new transportation demand for a large number of people who may not have access to an automobile. And so making sure that we're providing sort of specific programs that, that provide those connections to these work sites, I think is a very important part of the strategy as well. So really encourage that to be included in this overall program offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Commissioner Berkman?
Thank you, Lisa. Page 51 lists public projects over $15 million. And then when you look at page 52, the gray bar there shows public projects. Are those the projects over $15 million, or are those the estimated all public projects?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Oh, Aiden, do you want me to answer? Okay.
I was passing it to you.
Thanks. So the study itself did primary data collection with all of our local public agencies, and then through that survey collected primary data. This particular slide is really meant to show the broader context of demand, but it's the source of data is through the Oregon Employment Department, where they're able to look at data through and Amy might be able to help me here, but so it is sort of meant to be complementary to help show the broader context that's beyond the scope, if that's helpful to answer your question.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you say that's a broader picture than just the 15 million. Thank you.
That's right. Yep.
Great questions. We actually have about 10 more minutes if there are other questions or comments. We anticipated this might be an area where there are feedback. All right, President Peterson.
Hi, thanks. I'm also glad that we had this update on the study. I just wanted to ask about the work being done with the community benefits agreements and when we will be hearing like a full list and a matrix of how these things will get funded then, because I think this is part and parcel of some of that work. And so I would like to know, and we don't have to talk about it now, but I would like to see it as soon as possible of the list of things coming out, whether it's prioritized or not at this point and in a draft form, and the potential strategies for funding, because I'm assuming that some of these things can be funded by the project itself. Some of them may be in question as a policy of being funded by the project. And then what are the alternative funding things that we need to keep in mind? Because packages for transportation are going to be starting to be created, and I would like to get ahead of that. as well as for some of the other things in that list. So thanks.
So if I can jump in real quick on that topic, we do have an agenda of meeting topics for the Community Benefits Advisory Group. And hopefully this summer, we will, at our next ESG meeting, have a presentation ready for the ESG on where these topics are, knowing that these things are not etched in stone, that they're still have to come before this body to get the final sign off on how things are moving forward. But we hope to have more and better information at our next ESG meeting, which I anticipate will be sometime early summer.
Great, thank you. Secretary Millar.
Before we go on, I just
sorry.
want to be more, yeah, I just want to be more clear. I guess I don't want just a presentation. I would like the information as soon as possible with the matrix of potential funding methodologies, so I can review it and get a better handle on it before there's a formal presentation. Thanks.
Understood.
Great, thank you. Secretary Millar.
Thank you, and I would hope that sharing of information is it's been standard practice in this, having those one-on-one conversations. Greg, I want to make sure that you and your team know that we're looking for you to do all of this all at once right now, and give us lots of opportunity to provide input and second guess you, but immediate responses are very much appreciated. I just, in the meeting I was in before I came to this meeting was the President's National Infrastructure Advisory Council. We had a subcommittee meeting on workforce development, and what the team just presented to me shows that we are, while we're all on a journey, I think this region, this project is a lot further along than some other parts of the country and the nation as a whole. So I applaud the work that's being done. Let's perfect it, and it's nice that we're looking at how to diversify our workforce, make them welcome at the job site, and get the incomes that come with this great work into all of our communities. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good work, and looking forward to refining this as we go forward.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or feedback before we open the meeting for public comment? Any other questions? I know we went a little quick on a few of the sections just to make sure that we had enough time in this particular section. So we have 2 public commenters, so just want to check to see. All right.
So Lisa, if I can jump in, one of the key next steps that we are working on is a project or program delivery document. And this, once again, will be our roadmap to how we are dividing this program up and how we are looking at sizes of contracts, delivery methods. So we're hoping to share back with this group at our next meeting a very comprehensive look at how we plan on attacking the delivery of this program. We're having great conversations with the industry, both contractors and designers. We're hoping to meet with them sometime in the spring to have an industry event around presenting to them a not fully baked cake on how we plan on delivering. So more to come on that at our next ESG meeting. We will make that a part of our presentation.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Let's go ahead and open the meeting for public comment. Aiden and Kelly, appreciate the presentation. All righty. So the instructions for public comment are similar as to what they've been in the past, but we want to make sure that those that are new to participating via this meeting space and providing us public comment, that we're clear on what the instructions are for doing so. If you have joined by Zoom, we ask that you click raise hand. I see that we have 2 that already have their hands raised. Appreciate that. If you've joined by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. The facilitator, I will call on you, and we will ask you to unmute. When we ask you to do that, if you're commenting by phone, dial *6 to unmute. Please provide your name and affiliation, and attendees will be allocated up to 2 minutes for public comment. Xander will go ahead and put a timer on the screen so that you can track how many minutes you've been speaking, and so that we are able to allow for all of those public commenters that would like to provide the ESG with public comments. I now see that we have 4 hands raised. If you're not able to provide public comment in this space right now, we also want to remind you, you can go ahead and proceed to the next slide. We want to remind you that you can submit comments after the meeting, and you can do so by emailing or by providing comments on our form with the program website at info@interstatebridge.org. Just please make sure that you include ESG public comment so that we can make sure that our members of our executive steering group do receive those comments directly. And as a reminder, all of the public comments that were received prior to this meeting have been distributed to the executive steering committee for review prior to the meeting. And with that, we will go ahead and bring the timer up. And we have, as I mentioned, 4 members of the community that would like to provide public comment. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that Tina Barsodi, if you are able to unmute and allow us to, I just want to make sure that we can hear you, and then we'll start the timer. Tina, are you with us?
I did not raise my hand.
Okay, your hand's raised. So we'll go ahead and take your hand down and we'll move to the next presenter, commenter, Bob Ortblatt. Can you hear us, Bob?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Bob.
Very good. Let's go. I'm Bob Ortblatt, a Washington resident and 40 years a civil engineer. Thank you for the bridge visualizations. They were shockingly ugly, but I was disappointed. Where is the video that was promised on the agenda? I taught the history of infrastructure for several years at the University of Washington. This group should remember the history of the Embarcadero Freeway, the Alaskan Way Viaduct, and how they despoiled their waterfronts. Imagine if both of these were rebuilt side by side, they would equal the width of each of the 2 IBR bridge approaches on Vancouver and Hayden Island. Noisy, polluting, and ugly, these approaches are built. If these approaches are built, our children will tear them down. This group should also study the recent history of Vancouver and Antwerp. Both had highway departments promoting bridges for over a decade. However, citizens revolted when they saw the impacts of these bridges. Both cities are now building immersed tunnels. The IBR has lied about the feasibility of an immersed tunnel. The IBR's tunnel concept assessment was completely discredited through a public disclosure request. This report must be retracted, its $100,000 fee refunded, and an independent consultant should do an honest evaluation. The IBR's EIS must include an immersed tunnel alternative. The U.S. Coast Guard has suggested a tunnel, but has been ignored by the IBR. The more citizens learn about the IBR's bridge, the more they will support a tunnel alternative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. All right, the next community member that has a hand up is Lance Killian. So Lance, we're going to go ahead and allow you the opportunity to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Thanks, Lance. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get your time started so that you can provide feedback to the executive steering group.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lance Killian. I'm representing Columbia Business Center, situated just upstream of the existing bridge. Columbia Business Center is one of the largest industrial business parks in the Pacific Northwest. It accounts for an estimated 6% of the total economic output in Clark County on an annualized basis, billions of dollars in revenue and thousands of jobs. This economic engine is in peril of being significantly impacted by a 35% reduction in the vertical navigation clearance as contemplated in the locally preferred alternative. CBC and the community have a lot at stake here. The heart of CBC's facility, layout, and operation was designed and built 80 years ago in reliance on the 178 feet of vertical navigation clearance and continues to rely on such today and will into the future. The heavy manufacturing tenants at Columbia Business Center have negotiated flexibility to terminate their occupancy at Columbia Business Center if the vertical navigation clearance is reduced. Yet CBC's specialized facilities can't be relocated to address this restriction. The U.S. Coast Guard's regulations and existing preliminary navigation clearance determination are on point as they mention CBC 22 times in supporting their conclusion that any proposed new bridge should have a VNC of greater than or equal to that of the existing I-5 twin bridges of 178 feet. In the public forum, IBRs conveyed that these CBC tenants and CBC are being worked with and resolution will be attained. Unfortunately, I'm here today to tell you and share with you that that is not the case with CBC. And CBC will take those steps necessary to protect its position through the entitlement process. We did also submit additional information with more specific written testimony, details on CBC specifically, and a recent letter sent last October to the FTA and FHWA for your review. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Lance. We're going to go to our last public commenter. John, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Go
ahead and get started.
John Lee, Clark County. I'm amazed that there was no updated information about the price of the project. In December, Greg Johnson told the 16 legislators of the 2 states that the price tag was going up, and yet today we're still talking about the need to fund $6 billion for the project. If the price tag goes up, you need to find information on where that money is going to come from. Amazingly, there was no honest discussion of recent public input on tolling. 2 weeks ago, a new public survey was released showing 76% of the citizens in the Portland metro area oppose tolling. 69% of the people in Multnomah County and 91% of the people in Clackamas County oppose tolling. What will you do when Oregon citizens approve IP4, which will guarantee them a vote before tolls? That citizen initiative includes the I-5 interstate bridge. An additional thing you should be talking about. West Linn Mayor did a public records request and revealed that ODOT expects an 83 to 86% cost of collecting tolls on I-205. And this body and the bridge project overall has turned over the cost of collecting tolls to ODOT. My goodness, how much money are you going to have to take from people's pockets in order to cover an 80% cost of collection? That's ridiculous. An additional aspect of this is that the Oregon Trucking Association recently sued the state of Oregon and the Oregon governor because they are paying more than their fair share. And yet the discussion is going forward that they must pay higher than citizen average vehicle drivers tolls in order for the privilege of driving on this. There are a lot of information you should be hearing about that wasn't presented today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It looks like we don't have any other folks signed up to provide public comment. I just want to confirm that, Xander, there are no other folks that want to provide comment. Okay, hearing and seeing none, we are at the end of the meeting. I just want to reiterate again how grateful we are that folks have stayed engaged and involved. And even though there's been a distance between the public meetings that we've had with the ESG, there's been a lot of partnership and work done together to try and continue to move this Interstate Bridge Replacement Program forward. I also want to mention to the public that there are multiple ways in which you can engage with the Executive Steering Group and a lot of resources that are on our website, including much of what you saw today and links to additional backup and support resources and materials. So with that, I'm going to pass over the meeting to Administrator Johnson. If you have any final words that you might want to share before we close the meeting.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And I want to thank this group for your constant input and support of moving this program forward. We didn't get a chance to say a formal goodbye to Sean as he went on to different things, but we appreciated his good work. And the end, we appreciate you stepping into to this role to help us move this program forward. So we're going to have a busy spring. So we'll be reaching out to you to set up our next ESG meeting to talk about what's the current thinking on certain aspects that you have asked questions about. So I want to thank you for your input and attention.
All right, 5 minutes early. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone being here today.